Most people try to change their life by changing everything at once. New goals, new habits, new routines, and for a short time it feels productive. But soon, it becomes overwhelming, and everything returns to the way it was before. Stoicism takes a different approach. It does not ask you to do more. It asks you to see clearly, to understand what truly matters and what does not. Because most of the struggle in daily life does not come from difficulty itself, but from confusion. Confusion about what to control, what to pursue, what to ignore. And when that confusion is removed, life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. You stop reacting to everything. You stop overthinking every situation. You stop wasting energy on things that do not deserve it. Instead, your attention becomes precise, your actions become intentional, your mind becomes steady. This is the quiet strength Stoicism develops, not loud motivation, not temporary inspiration, but a stable way of thinking that stays with you in every situation. In this video, you will learn 4 simple rules, not complicated systems, not abstract ideas, but clear principles you can apply immediately in your daily life. And when practiced consistently, they begin to change how you think, how you respond, and how you move through the world. Because real transformation does not come from doing more, it comes from doing the right things with clarity. There is a quiet frustration that follows many people through life. It does not always appear clearly, but it is always there. A constant tension. A feeling that things are not going the way they should. That something is out of place. That something needs to change. And often this feeling leads to overthinking. Replaying situations. Imagining different outcomes. Trying to understand why things happen the way they did. But beneath all of this, there is a deeper issue. A misunderstanding of what is actually within your control. Stoicism begins here, with a simple distinction that most people overlook. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. This idea sounds simple, almost too simple to matter. But in practice it changes everything. Because much of the stress people experience daily comes from trying to control what cannot be controlled. The actions of others, their opinions, their reactions, external outcomes, unpredictable events. All of these exist outside your control. Yet the mind continues to focus on them, trying to adjust them, trying to influence them, trying to force a certain result. And when reality does not match expectation, frustration appears. Not because the situation is unbearable, but because there was an attempt to control something that was never yours. This is where the Stoic approach becomes powerful. Instead of resisting reality, it asks you to see it clearly, to separate what is yours from what is not. Your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, your effort. These belong to you. They are within your control, and because of that, they deserve your attention. Everything else does not. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent to life. It means your energy is directed more precisely. Instead of being scattered across everything, it is focused only on what you can actually influence. This creates clarity, a sense of direction, because you are no longer trying to manage the uncontrollable. You are working with what is real. There is also a sense of calm that comes with this understanding. Because when you accept that certain things are outside your control, you stop fighting them. You stop resisting outcomes that you cannot change. You stop attaching your peace to external results. And this is where stability begins. Not in controlling everything, but in knowing what not to control. This shift is not immediate. It requires practice. Because the mind naturally wants certainty. It wants control over outcomes. It wants to predict and manage everything. But life does not operate that way. There will always be uncertainty, always variables outside your influence. And the more you try to control them, the more tension you create. So the Stoic learns to pause, to observe a situation before reacting to it, to ask a simple question: is this within my control? If the answer is yes, action follows. Clear, direct, focused. But if the answer is no, something different happens. There is acceptance. But active understanding. A decision not to waste energy on something that cannot be changed. This is where emotional freedom begins. Because your state is no longer tied to external events. It is anchored internally, in your choices, in your response, in your ability to remain steady regardless of what happens around you. Over time, this changes how you experience life. Situations that once created stress begin to feel manageable, not because they are easier, but because your relationship with them has changed. You no longer react automatically. You respond with awareness. You no longer feel the need to control every outcome. You focus on your role within it. This also improves your decisions, because when your attention is not scattered, your thinking becomes clearer. You see situations more objectively, without emotional distortion, without unnecessary pressure. And from that clarity, better actions follow. There's also a deeper layer to this principle. It teaches responsibility. True responsibility. Not for everything that happens, but for how you respond to it. Because while you cannot control events, you always control your reaction. And that reaction shapes your experience. This is where real power exists. Not in changing the world, but in changing how you engage with it. In the end, life becomes simpler when you understand this clearly. Not because challenges disappear, but because confusion is removed. You know where to direct your energy. You know what to release. And that clarity creates a different kind of strength. Quiet, stable, unshaken by things that were never yours to control. There is a subtle habit that quietly shapes how most people live. It is not always obvious, but it influences nearly every decision. A constant attachment to outcomes. A need for things to turn out in a certain way. A quiet expectation that effort should always lead to a specific result. And when that result does not appear, frustration follows. Doubt appears, motivation weakens. Because the mind was never focused on the action itself. It was focused on what the action should produce. This is where many people struggle, not because they lack ability, but because their attention is divided. Split between what they are doing and what they hope will happen. Stoicism offers a different approach. It shifts your focus away from the outcome and places it entirely on the action. Not because outcomes do not matter, but because they are not fully within your control. You can influence them, but you cannot guarantee them. And when your peace depends on something uncertain, your stability becomes fragile. This is why detachment is important. Not emotional distance from life, but freedom from dependency on results. The ability to act fully, without needing a specific outcome to feel satisfied. This changes how you approach everything, because now your attention is no longer divided. You are fully present in what you are doing. Your effort becomes complete, undistracted, focused. There is no tension about what will happen next, only clarity about what needs to be done now. This creates a different kind of energy, but steady execution, because when you are attached to outcomes, your mind constantly moves ahead. It leaves the present moment. It imagines results. It worries about failure. It anticipates success. And in doing so, it weakens your ability to act effectively. But when you detach, your mind returns to the present, to the task in front of you, to the process itself. This is where real performance improves, because quality action requires full attention, and full attention is only possible when the mind is not distracted by future outcomes. There is also a deeper psychological shift that happens here. You begin to measure progress differently, not by results alone, but by consistency of effort, by how well you show up each day, by how focused your actions are. This creates stability, because results can fluctuate. Some days will go well, others will not. But your effort, your discipline, your commitment to action can remain constant. And when your sense of progress is tied to something stable, your mindset becomes stable as well. This also removes a hidden pressure, the pressure to succeed immediately, the pressure to see results quickly, the pressure to validate your effort through outcomes. When that pressure disappears, your work becomes calmer, more focused, more sustainable. You are no longer rushing toward results. You are building them gradually through consistent action. Another important benefit is resilience. When you are attached to outcomes, failure feels personal. It feels like something is wrong. But when you are detached, failure becomes information, feedback, a signal to adjust your approach, not a reason to stop. This keeps you moving forward, because your identity is not tied to results. It is tied to your actions, and actions can always continue. This creates long-term progress, the kind that is not easily disrupted by setbacks. Because your foundation is not fragile, it does not depend on immediate success. It is built on consistency. There is also a quiet confidence that comes from this approach. Because when you focus on action, you know you are doing your part. You are not waiting. You are not hesitating. You are not depending on chance. You are engaged in the process, fully, and that creates certainty. Not certainty of outcome, but certainty of effort. And over time, this effort accumulates, slowly, quietly, but consistently, until results begin to appear. Not forced, not rushed, but earned. This is the Stoic way of working. Focus on what you can do now. Do it with full attention, and release the need to control what happens next. Because once the action is complete, the outcome is no longer yours. It belongs to a larger process, influenced by many factors beyond your control. Understanding this creates peace, because you are no longer trying to manage everything. You are doing your part, and allowing the rest to unfold. In the end, detachment is not about caring less. It is about caring more deeply about the right thing. Your actions, your effort, your discipline, because that is where your power lies. And when your focus remains there, your life becomes more stable, more consistent, more aligned with reality. You act without hesitation, without fear of outcome, without dependence on results. And in that state, you perform at your highest level. There is a quiet pattern that shapes the lives of most people. A constant movement toward comfort, toward ease, toward what feels familiar and effortless. And at first, this seems natural, even desirable, because comfort feels safe, it feels stable, it feels like something to protect. But over time, something begins to change. Not outside, but within. The mind becomes softer, less resilient, more reactive to difficulty. Small challenges begin to feel heavier. Simple discomfort becomes harder to tolerate. And slowly, without realizing it, your capacity to handle life begins to shrink. This is the hidden cost of constant comfort. It does not weaken you immediately. It weakens you gradually, quietly, until the moment when strength is required, and it is no longer there. Stoicism takes a different path. It does not avoid discomfort. It does not resist difficulty. It moves toward it, not recklessly, but intentionally, because discomfort is not the enemy. It is the training ground, the place where strength is developed, where discipline is formed, where resilience is built. This begins with a simple shift in perspective. Instead of seeing discomfort as something negative, you begin to see it as useful, as necessary, as part of growth. This does not make discomfort pleasant. It does not remove difficulty, but it changes your relationship with it. You no longer avoid it automatically. You begin to face it with awareness, with intention. There are many forms of discomfort: physical effort, mental strain, emotional challenge, situations that require patience, focus, endurance. And in each of these moments, there is a choice: to move away from the discomfort or to remain with it. Most people move away. They choose ease, immediate relief, short-term comfort. But this choice comes with a cost, because every time you avoid discomfort, you weaken your ability to handle it in the future. You reinforce the habit of escape, and that habit grows stronger over time. Stoic discipline works in the opposite direction. It builds the habit of staying, of continuing, even when something feels difficult. Not pushing beyond your limits blindly, but expanding them gradually. This is how strength is formed. Not through one moment of effort, but through repeated exposure. Through consistency. Through the willingness to remain when it would be easier to leave. There is also a psychological shift that happens through this practice. You begin to trust yourself more, because you experience your own resilience. You see that you can handle difficulty, that you can continue despite discomfort. And this creates confidence, not based on success, but based on capability. The knowledge that you can endure, that you can adapt, that you can remain steady, even when things are not easy. This kind of confidence is stable. It does not depend on external conditions. It is built internally, through experience. Another important effect is emotional control. It often appears as emotion, frustration, anxiety, impatience. And the instinct is to escape these feelings, to distract yourself, to avoid them. But when you learn to sit with discomfort, you also learn to sit with emotion, without reacting immediately, without needing to remove it. This creates stability, because you are no longer controlled by how you feel in a moment. You can experience discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. You can continue acting even when emotions are present. This is a powerful form of control. Not control over external events, but control over your response. Over time, this changes how you approach challenges. You no longer see them as something to avoid. You begin to see them as opportunities to strengthen yourself. Situations that once felt difficult begin to feel manageable, not because they have changed, but because you have. Your tolerance has increased. Your mindset has shifted. Your response has become more stable. There is also a deeper level to this principle. It teaches you to separate comfort from progress, because they are not the same. Progress often requires discomfort, effort, uncertainty, and when you accept this, you stop expecting growth to feel easy. You stop being surprised by difficulty. You begin to expect it, and because you expect it, you are prepared for it. This removes frustration, because you are no longer resisting what is natural to the process, you are working with it. In the end, embracing discomfort is not about seeking pain, expanding your capacity, becoming someone who is not easily shaken by difficulty. Because life will always present challenges. That cannot be avoided. But how you respond to them, that can be developed. And when you train yourself to remain steady in discomfort, you carry that strength into every area of your life. Quietly, consistently, without needing to prove it. The mind is always active. Even in silence, it continues to move. Thoughts appear, ideas form, memories return, possibilities are imagined. And most of this happens without conscious intention. It is automatic, continuous, often unnoticed. But over time, this constant activity begins to shape how you experience life. Not because every thought is important, but because many are not. Unnecessary thoughts, repetitive thoughts, thoughts that do not lead to action, do not create clarity, do not improve understanding, yet they occupy space in the mind. They consume attention, they create noise, and slowly they reduce your ability to think clearly. This is one of the most overlooked challenges, not external problems, but internal noise. Because when the mind is crowded, everything feels heavier. Decisions become harder. Focus becomes weaker. Emotions become less stable. Not because life has become more difficult, but because your attention is divided. Stoicism addresses this not by stopping thought completely, but by guiding it, by learning to observe rather than automatically engage. This begins with awareness, the ability to notice what is happening in your mind without immediately reacting to it. At first, this may seem difficult, because thoughts move quickly. They appear without warning. They pull your attention before you realize it. But with practice, something changes. You begin to see thoughts as separate from yourself, but suggestions, not facts, but possibilities. And once you see this clearly, you gain the ability to choose which thoughts to follow, which to ignore, which to question. This is where control begins. Not by forcing silence, but by reducing unnecessary engagement. Because most thoughts lose their power when they are not fed with attention. They appear, and if ignored, they pass. But when you engage with them, analyze them, react to them, they grow. They repeat. They create patterns. And these patterns shape your mindset. This is why guarding your mind is essential. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every idea needs to be explored. Not every emotion requires a reaction. Learning this creates space. Space between thought and response. Space where clarity can exist. space where you can decide how to act, instead of reacting automatically. This space is powerful, because it allows you to remain calm even when your mind is active. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You are grounded, stable, present. Another important aspect is reducing mental clutter. Many thoughts are repetitive. The same concerns, the same scenarios, the same questions without clear answers. And each time you revisit them, you use energy without gaining clarity. This is where discipline is required. The ability to recognize when a thought is not useful, and to let it go without continuing the cycle. This does not mean ignoring important problems. It means approaching them with intention, at the right time, with focus, not repeatedly, without progress. This creates efficiency in thinking. You think when it is necessary, you act when it is clear, and you rest when nothing needs to be done. This balance reduces mental strain. It allows your mind to function more effectively. There is also a connection between thought and emotion. Many emotions are not caused directly by events, but by how those events are interpreted, the story the mind creates around them. And when those thoughts are unnecessary, exaggerated, or repetitive, the emotional response becomes stronger. But when you guard your thoughts, you reduce this effect. You see situations more clearly, without adding unnecessary meaning, without amplifying emotion. This creates emotional stability, not because you suppress feeling, but because you understand its source. Over time, this changes your entire experience of life. You become less reactive, less overwhelmed, more focused, more present, because your attention is no longer consumed by unnecessary thought. There is also a deeper benefit: clarity. When the mind is not crowded, it becomes easier to see what matters, to make decisions, to act with purpose. This clarity is quiet. It does not demand attention, but it changes everything, because it allows you to move through life without constant internal conflict. In the end, guarding your mind is not about control in a strict sense. It is about awareness, the ability to notice, to choose, and to let go, because your thoughts shape your experience. And when you learn to guide them, instead of being guided by them, you gain a level of control that is both quiet and powerful. A steady mind, clear, focused, unburdened by what is unnecessary. And from that clarity, everything else becomes simpler.